Hey folks, my name's Charlie. I am a full-time freelance illustrator and I am here to talk to you about building a perfect portfolio that universities and that clients will love. So, let me introduce myself first. Like I said, my name is Charlie. Full-time freelance illustrator does not mean I work for free, even though there's the word free in freelance. I work for myself, so I do different work for different people all the time. I don't work for one specific person in one specific studio. My work changes constantly, and that's why I love it, because I love exploring different areas of what it is I do. Here's a few examples of the kind of work that I do. I love colour, I love narrative, I love working with books and picture books, so my work is mostly focused in publishing. I've done a few graphic novels as well. Anything that involves characters, I'm there. I love working with characters. I love working with really unique, intriguing storylines. I love a bit of folklore and mythology. That's the kind of work that I do, and it's the work that I really enjoy doing. But it took a while to get to this point. So here's a brief little overview about how I got to where I am today. It all started with, like a lot of artists like to say, childhood. So it started when I would draw on everything as a kid. Everything, every wall, every surface, every notebook, every textbook for school, everything would get drawn all over, and it got me in trouble a few times, but I really enjoyed doing it. Drawing was my main thing that I loved to do. So obviously, when I had the option to choose which GCSEs I wanted to do, I chose art as one of my subjects. From there, I went on and did it during my A-levels as well, but after my A-levels, I wasn't quite sure what direction I wanted to take my artisticness in. I knew I loved to draw. That was it. I didn't know what subject that lended best to. I didn't know where I fell. I didn't know where would be best for me. So I went ahead and did a foundation diploma. So you might know what one is, you might not. If you don't, a foundation diploma is a year-long course that you do before you go to university. So I did mine at Colchester Institute, and you try a week in loads of different creative subjects before you choose to specialise. So I did a week in fashion, graphic design, 3D, textiles, photography, fine art. You try all of it, and then right at the end, for the last half or 3/4 or so of the course, you specialise. So I specialised in graphic design, and it was my graphic design tutor that pulled me aside one day and explained to me that she thought illustration was perfect for me, because I really like the messy conceptual elements of fine art, but I like the commercial design elements of graphic design. Illustration, perfect. So I went ahead and did illustration at Norwich University of the Arts. I graduated in 2014. Literally, I just had to look up my certificate up there because I forget. So once I graduated, I supplemented my income with part-time jobs to keep rent paid, to keep bills paid. It's very common for freelance creatives to do that, because we have to. It's very rare for someone to finish their education and go straight into full-time freelancing. Only a very privileged little pocket of people are able to do that. So I had a couple of part-time jobs whilst I did smaller client work, whilst I researched my industry, and it was only 2 years ago or so that I was able to quit my part-time job because I had so much illustration work to pay my rent with that I quit my part-time job. And now I'm a full-time illustrator, rent, bills, my dog's incredibly expensive food, all of it paid for with my illustration work. So I'm really proud and really happy with the stage I'm at now, being full-time freelance. I'm my own boss, and it's exactly what it is I wanted to do. So it took a lot of work, it took a lot of time, it took a lot of leaving my comfort zone to get to this stage, but it's fully viable and doable for anyone to have this career if they put the work in. That's enough about me. I just wanted to give you a little bit of background as to who I am and where I came from and how I got to this point. But today's focus is how to build a perfect portfolio. And I've broken it down into 4 key areas. So the first thing will be, what exactly is a portfolio? And I know obviously you know, like, this is a portfolio, all right? I'm not just going to hold this up and be like, this is one. Next, we're going to look at the core things a portfolio is supposed to do for you, the purpose of it, the goals of a portfolio. So the very, very base level knowledge of what you're supposed to be creating. Next up is what universities will want to see in these portfolios, the things they're really looking for. Next is how to build this portfolio. So we're going to be focusing on digital ones, so digital submissions, how it is logistically that we're going to be putting this together. And lastly will be some key do's and don'ts for if you get through to the interview stage with the university. Some very, very key things that you should do lots of and things you should do less of. First of all is, what is a portfolio beyond just a black folder with some wallets in it? In short, a portfolio is a curated compilation of creative work demonstrating skill, artistic interpretation, and an eye for unique and impactful aesthetics. Really, all it is demonstrating that you can do this field, this specialism brilliantly, in however you want to interpret that. And there's a few different ways that you're going to be doing that. There's different things you're going to be showing them to prove this skill to them. But in short, that is what a portfolio is. And there's some things it has to tick off in order to be successful. It has to demonstrate technical skill. So whether that's with a particular material or with a particular method, to show that you're really good at using graphite, or you're very good at oil paint, or you're very good at screen printing. What technical skills do you want to demonstrate and show off in this portfolio? Your creative interpretation, so it's how you take an idea, a brief, a concept, and turn it into something unique. And as a quick disclaimer, there's a lot of pressure on artists and students to be fully original. There are no fully original ideas left out there, really, when you think about it. But the more you can avoid the cliche, the more you can avoid falling into a stereotype or something that's been done 100 times, the stronger this creative interpretation will be to the viewer. Next is going to be your ability and your willingness to leave your comfort zone. So if you are anything like I was when I was at school, I loved my comfort zone and I would not leave it. I must have driven my teachers nuts. I want to draw animals. I don't ever want to draw people. I don't ever want to draw buildings. Don't make me do it. I won't do it. Would have driven them mad. It drives me mad thinking about it. I wish I would have left my comfort zone more earlier. But your portfolio has to show that. It has to show that you are willing and able and successful at leaving your comfort zone. It's where exploration and experimentation comes in. And lastly, and very importantly, show that you care about the subject that this portfolio is focused on. So if it's illustration, show that you really care about illustration. And this isn't a specific thing you can do, because if you tick off those other three, it will show that you care about it. And that's what the viewer wants to see. At the heart of it all, they want to see that you really, really care about what it is you do. Next is what universities specifically want to see. And there's quite a few things that are easy to pick out that unis really like to see in portfolios. First thing will be, like I mentioned, exploration. They love seeing you explore, leave your comfort zone, try different things. They love a variety of work. Remember when I was describing my foundation, the kind of things that we tried whilst I was there was perfect for this exploration element of my portfolio. I'm going to go over all these in a bit more detail in a minute as well. Next will be your best and your favourite work. Remember what I said, this is curated. You're the curator. You get to decide what work goes in here, so why not choose your favourite? Make sure every page that you get to is exciting for you and for the viewer. Next will be a balance of polished and development work, and this will vary from uni to uni. Different places will want to see more of one or the other. And lastly, very importantly, you're going to hear me say this a lot over the next few minutes, by the way, follow their guidelines. So each institution, each university will have different guidelines for what it is they want to see and what they will accept in your portfolio. So first of all, I mentioned exploration, and I mentioned my foundation. So here's some actual work I did during my foundation. None of it are things I'm doing right now. I didn't take photography any further. I didn't take sculpture any further. But this exploration, this experimentation, and leaving my comfort zone helped me so much in discovering what it is I like to do and things I don't necessarily like to do. And they want to see that. They want to see this exploration. They want to see all of this stuff that you tried. Because when I did my A-levels, I was so used to paint this bowl of fruit, draw this person's face. And I got to my foundation and it was turn a table upside down and cover it in bed sheets. Draw this popcorn, but you can only use a 6-foot bamboo pole. It was wild. Like, I wasn't used to this. And this is the kind of stuff I produced and the kind of things that I put into my portfolio. But when people talk about experimentation, when I talk to students about experimentation, an awful lot of the time I will hear, but my style. But what about my style? None of it's consistent. I'm really worried. I can't find my style. I need to find it. One page is textiles, the next page is screen printing. What do I do with this? It's okay. Like, it's okay. You don't need to be finding your style right now. It's really, really important for you to be trying different things and exploring your skills and things that you enjoy and things you don't enjoy, not solidifying your style. These are some of my favourite illustrators in the whole world, and they have very distinctive styles at this point. If it's a Natalie Hall, I know it's a Natalie Hall. If there's a Beatrice Blue, I know it's a Beatrice Blue. But their styles are still evolving. If you look at work they did a year ago, it looks so different to the work they do now. As a really, really good example of that, can anyone tell me who did this one? Go on. Begins with a P. Picasso! Yeah, see, I bet loads of you guys got that. Picasso. So very distinctive, very obvious cubist style. Everyone recognizes a Picasso. Who did this? It's a bit harder and it's quite mean because it's the exact same guy. Who, if any of you got that, I'm well impressed. Gold star. So this is a very clear example of how nobody is born with a distinctive style. Nobody starts their career, their creative work, their education with a solidified style. It will not take you 41 years to develop your style, all right? I know these pictures are 41 years apart, but don't panic. It won't take you that long. But it just goes to show that you develop your style over time, and the more time you take to hone it and practice it and explore around it, the more unique and true to you it will be when you start to discover your creative voice or your style. So the kind of work that went into my portfolio was this. There was pattern design, there was life drawing, lino printing, photography. All sorts of different areas went into my portfolio that I didn't necessarily want to explore as a job or as part of my bigger projects, but I really wanted to show them that I could and would explore different areas of illustration, of the visual arts that I was interested in. Next on that list was showing your best work. So this is curated, you're the curator. Have only good and your favourite things in there, because you don't want them to be flicking through your portfolio and they get to an image and they ask you about it and you dread talking about that image. Alright, if your images tick any of these boxes, take them out. Seriously, if you don't want to show it off, if you don't want to talk about it, if you wouldn't want to do it again, if you just don't like it, if you get to that one and you just don't like it, take it out. This is your portfolio, not anyone else's. Next we'll be showing that balance between polished work and development work, and this will vary depending on what university you're talking to. Different ones will want to see different amounts of both of these things, so make sure you check what it is they're looking for, how much development work they are looking for. So both of these have massive benefits in your portfolio. Both polished work and development work will help you hugely, and they all do different things. So for example, polished work will show professionalism immediately. It will demonstrate to the viewer that you can finish something to a professional standard. It's really good practice for when you start looking at clients and when you start considering this as a career. It demonstrates your technical skills beautifully, so you're polishing technical abilities, especially if you're looking at image editing software and things like that. And it shows that you can take a project through to completion. You can take this brief, this concept, and finish it to something gorgeous and ready to go on a book cover, on a billboard, in a magazine, wherever it is you want to see your work. It shows you can take it through to that stage. But along the same lines, development work has huge benefits as well. It will show your thought process, so the viewer will immediately know how it is you got to this point. It will demonstrate contextual knowledge, the people, the eras, the movements that influenced your work, what it is that you brought into this project to influence it and make it more three-dimensional and unique. Your problem-solving skills, so if you encountered a hurdle or a bump in the road or something that slowed this project down, how did you get around that? Did you change the method that you used? Did you reevaluate the concept? Did you think again about the format you want this project to take its form in? Why and how did you fix these problems? And lastly is the investigation of things like techniques and mediums. What did you try before you finalized this work? Did you think it would work best in screen printing, photography, a drawing, a painting? What areas did you explore before you created this final piece? But very, very importantly, like I've said, I warned you I'd be saying this a lot, follow their guidelines, all right? It's so key to making sure this all works, because you don't want to put tons of effort in and for it to be wrong for the institution that you want to apply for. There are certain things that will vary from uni to uni. It will be things like the number of pages that they actually want to see. What format do they want this portfolio submitted in? Sometimes they want a blog, sometimes they want files sent directly to them. What kind of labeling would they like to see on the work? Do they want you to describe the work that you're showing them, or would they rather just see the images themselves? Would they like to see sketchbooks? And how much development or supplementary work would they like to see? Do they want essays submitted alongside the work, or do they just want pictures? Do check with every single institution you're applying for, because they will vary. Different places want to see very different things. But I did say that I'd look at client work as well. So client submissions are very different. And I think it's important for you folks to know as early on as possible areas of professional practice. For if any of you are considering a career in the creative arts, it's important to know as early on as you can how to start approaching that. So client work will want to see different numbers of pieces, and note I said pieces here, not pages. Individual images, not a page of collaged images. The context must be clear in the work. If you are applying for, say, a literary agent, which is an agent that focuses on publishing, so books and book covers in kids' books, they want to see that your work can translate into that. So don't just send them illustrations, send them an illustration as a book cover. Send them an illustration as an interior book illustration. Show them that your work can work in these particular areas, not just that you're able to draw. Next is they do not want to see unfinished work. They don't want to see your development work. Unless you are working with them and they are paying you, they don't want to see the thumbnails. They don't want to see your sketchbooks. Only polished work. And lastly, are they even accepting submissions? Make sure you check that one. Because some agents, art directors, publishers, companies will be accepting submissions all the time. Others will close them for periods of time. So you don't want this sent off and for it to be never looked at, because you put a lot of work into it. So make sure you check all these areas too for when you get to that stage with clients, and I'm sure some of you will. Next is how we're going to build this portfolio, the actual logistical elements to building it and putting it together. We're going to be focusing on digital submissions because that's what most of you folks will be doing. It's looking at digital submissions. So a blog, a website, file submissions, however it is the uni wants you to send in your work, we're going to do a quick focus on how it is best to do that. First of all is blogs. So some unis will want your work to be online, and that's fine. That's easy. It's not as daunting as you think. You don't need to build a brand new website from scratch. It doesn't need to be coded. You don't need to do anything like that. There are tons of simple options for how you can upload to a blog or a website. First thing, check the guidelines. I feel like I need to have like a bubble somewhere to say like, check the guidelines, that pops up every 5 seconds, but please do. So check those guidelines, all right? Make sure you're submitting along the guidelines they are asking for. Put a brief description under each piece if you can, to give some context to what it is you're showing them. Maybe the project it was from, what materials you used to do it. If it's a large piece, maybe tell them the dimensions of it so they can get an idea of scale. Give them a little description to help them understand what it is they're looking at. You're going to want these images to be at 72 dpi. So if you're not familiar, dpi stands for dots per inch, and it just means the density of the pixels in the image. And 72 is the standard for screens and for digital images. If you print it, you'd want it at 300, but because you're not, keep it at 72. Anything above that, and your blog, your website, however it is you uploaded it, will be a very slow load, because it'll be trying to upload an awful lot of big images, okay? So keep it at 72. Keep it as professional as you can. So however it is you're doing this online submission of a portfolio, keep it professional, keep it clean cut. Don't have it linked to any personal things. So if you already have a blog, don't just then chuck your work into that. It needs to be standalone and just for your artwork, just for the work you're submitting. So keep it really professional. And do try to take good photos of your work and use a scanner if you have that as an option, because you don't want to be uploading nasty, dark, yellowy photos of this beautiful work that you've produced. You want nice, crisp images. You want to be able to use a scanner if you can. I understand that there is a financial barrier to how good you can get these images, but as best you can, make sure they are crisp. For blogs and blog site options, there are loads of options out there that you can use, but these are the 4 main ones that I can think of that look really smart and cover a lot of bases as well. So you've got Flickr, which is perfect for photographers and used an awful lot by photographers, but for anyone who works with images and is a visual creative, Flickr is perfect as well. The big BE in the circle there is for Behance, which is a portfolio site run by Adobe. They're the people who own and develop things like Photoshop and Illustrator. So Behance is really good and used an awful lot by designers and illustrators, but again, any visual creative can use it. WordPress is a blogging site. It gives you a bit more control over how your site looks and the design of this blog that you have. And lastly is Vimeo, which is perfect for motion picture, for animations, for films, for anything that's moving. Vimeo works perfectly. And all 4 of these are free to use. So do give them a little look and see which one will work best for you. Next up is file submissions. So if they prefer you to just submit files to maybe their internal system or their blog that you've been given access to, how it's best to do that. First thing, check the guidelines. Shocker! Check their guidelines. Make sure you're submitting what it is they want to see. 72 dpi again, because they're going to be looking at this on a screen. It doesn't need to be any higher, and you don't want them to have to download big fat files onto their computer. Name each file. So put your name and the name of the piece in each file. You don't want them to download a billion different Untitled 1, Untitled 2, Keyboard Mash 3. Alright, name each file as you go. If you have the option to put a reference on your upload, make it your name again or your UCAS ID. Basically, everything you upload and everything you provide to them needs to be able to be linked to you easily. You don't want your work to get lost, because that would be a massive bummer. So make sure everything has your name on it one way or another. And lastly is use editing software where necessary. So if you have an image that's come out a bit dark, or has a shadow on it that you don't want it there, or there's a bit of dog hair on it that you missed, use some image editing software to get rid of that stuff and make it as clean as possible. This doesn't have to be Photoshop. I'm not expecting all of you to have Photoshop because it's expensive. So we've got some options here for free editing software too, some of which I have used and is fantastic. First up is GIMP. I used this for years and years. I used GIMP for. It's brilliant. It's good for drawing. It's just an image editing bit of software that's completely free that you can download. Next is Critter. I've heard some fantastic things about Critter lately. Very similar to GIMP. I believe it might be a little bit more polished as well. And lastly is Photopea, which is even better because you don't have to download anything. It's all in your browser. So if it's very simple edits that you want to do, like changing the contrast or some colors or the exposure, just whack it into Photopea. It's all in your browser. You don't need to download any programs or install anything. Really, really simple and easy to use. So those three will be perfect for if you don't want to spend any money, or maybe your computer isn't as powerful as you'd want it to be, but you still want to make these photos perfect, give one of these three a try. Next is what order these images are going to be in, because you may have them now all in a beautiful file looking at you and they all look gorgeous and you're really happy with them. What order do you start uploading these in? Because you don't just want to whack them all in at once. Really consider the order that the viewer will be going through them. So I got a really good bit of advice a few years ago, which is really simple, but has helped me so much with developing my portfolios. And it's start strong, have everything in the middle, your favorite bits of work, everything that you love. Remember, if you don't love it, take it out, and end strong. It's really that simple. So my portfolio starts with my favorite bit of work, my very, very favorite, the thing I want to talk about the most. Everything in the middle, if it links, if there's a couple of images from the same project, I'll have them next to each other. If there's images I feel like work well together, I'll have them near each other. Position things in the middle however you think works best for your individual work. And then right at the end with something very strong again. So you've got their attention at the beginning and they will remember you at the end. Very, very important. But it's really not that much more complicated than that. There's no secret, there's no magic formula to how you order these images. Start strong, end strong. Easy. And the last thing we're going to be looking at today is some very key do's and don'ts for this whole process, especially when you get to the interview stage. Alright, so the very first do that I can think of is show a variety of work. And I've said exploration and experimentation again 500 times today, but it's really important. Show that variety, show you leaving your comfort zone, show you trying other things. Next is do not use low-res images. Remember what I said about editing your images and making sure they're as crisp as possible. You don't want to go to all this effort and then accidentally upload something that's teeny weeny and is really pixelated or stretched, or you've got the colours slightly wrong. Make sure these images are crisp and nice, a perfect resolution. Remember 72 dpi, don't go lower than that because it'll start to get a bit pixely. Keep these images looking as good as possible. Let them do your work justice. Next up is do research this institution or this university. Look up their portfolio requirements, again, the guidelines. Make sure you look at the tutors' names as well. I know this can sound a little bit stalky, but do have a look at their names just so you know how to address them. Just so you know who it is you're probably going to be talking to. Most of the websites will have photographs on them as well, so you'll know what they look like and what their names are. You can even do a bit of research into the kind of work they do and look at their website. They'll be so impressed if you turn up knowing what projects they've worked on. Give them a little bit of an ego boost and it gives you a bit of a boost in their eyes as well. Next is basic information about the university or the institution. How long has it been around? What sort of work do they focus on? Is there any famous alumni that have graduated? And I don't mean you need to be able to recite the entire Wikipedia page, but knowing a bit of basic information about this place and the tutors will give you a huge advantage when you start talking to them. It'll feel more conversational and less one-sided. You'll feel much more relaxed having a bit of knowledge to back this all up. Do not be self-deprecating. This is something I have to tell people off for all the time, okay? Don't immediately start saying how bad your work is. When you start getting into a conversation with someone about your work, the first things you say should not be, oh, I'm just learning. I'm just this. It's not very good. Don't look at that. I'm not very good at this thing, but don't look at, okay? That is a bad first impression. You don't want to be lowering their expectations before they've even had a chance to say hi. Be confident about your work. Be brave about your work. You spent a lot of time and effort on this work and you're at this interview stage, which is already a massive achievement. Own it. Be proud of it and talk about the things that you have without saying without saying I'm not, without these negatives. Do not lower their expectations immediately. Do prepare some answers for things, because there are some questions that I can guarantee you will be asked during these interviews. At least 2 or 3 of these will be asked of you. Alright? Things like, what was the project? What techniques did you use? What did you learn from this project? How did it go? What would you do differently next time? What influenced this work? Questions like this will and are asked all the time during university interviews, and it's a really, really good idea to prepare some answers for them. I'm not saying you read off a script, but I'm saying if you prepare an answer for this, you will not be caught off guard by them. You won't suddenly go blank. Because if someone went through my portfolio when I was doing my interviews and said, oh, what influenced this piece? My brain would shut off because I didn't prepare any answers. So think about these questions and think about how you would respond to them if someone were to ask you. And make it interesting. Make it really unique to you and your work, and they'll remember it, guaranteed. Lastly, I'm going to go over some things you can start doing now. Because you may not be at the stage where you're making your portfolio yet. You may be, in which case, good luck, you're nailing it. But what you can start doing now are some really, really simple, but very, very important and beneficial things to you and your work. The first thing is, stop worrying about making mistakes. It's very easy to say it, it's a lot harder to do it. But the more and more you can tell yourself mistakes are okay, the more confident you will be to start leaving that comfort zone. Because you're at the stage right now where you should be making mistakes and having projects that don't necessarily work and trying things that you're not confident in. So don't worry if you make a bad drawing. Don't worry if you try a project and it doesn't work out how you wanted it to. Don't forget that if you look at social media, if you look at people online, if you look at artists online, behind every good drawing we put on there is 10 terrible ones that we've shoved in a bin somewhere. Alright, so do not worry about making these mistakes. They will only help you learn more about yourself and the things you're good at. Next up is very closely linked to that is leave your comfort zone. So the sooner you try the things that you're not comfortable with in terms of your creative career, the better and stronger your work will be as you move forward. If you hate drawing hands right now, draw hands. If you hate drawing faces, draw faces. If you've never used oil paints, do that. If you've never animated anything, try that. Leave that comfort zone as early on as possible and you will notice the benefits very quickly. Next up is research everything, including the institutions and the tutors. Think about the contextual elements behind your work, the artists that you love, color palettes you want to try using, techniques you want to explore. Research everything, have it in a notebook, a blog, Pinterest, whatever it is you like to do in terms of hoarding your research, do tons of it now. Because the more input you have in your brain, the more unique and interesting your output will be in terms of your work. And lastly, very importantly, something I need to learn to get better at is take a break. Folks, take a break. Creative people are terrible at doing this. We're really, really bad at pushing ourselves to burnout and doing tons and tons of work because we feel like we have to be working constantly. And I know I fall into that pitfall a lot. It's very tempting to feel like the more and harder you work, the better it will be, when really the breaks are what will influence your energy levels and your ability to create gorgeous work. So try taking a step back from this portfolio, take a step back from the project you're working on, take a little break and come back to it later. Because the things you do after that break will be an awful lot better than the things you do when you're really, really tired at 1:30 in the morning trying to fill this sketchbook. Okay, so take plenty of breaks as you do this work, as you get ready for uni, and whilst you're there, and afterwards, just keep taking breaks. It's really, really important. And that's it. That's what I've got for you today. Thank you ever so much for watching all the way through to the end, you trooper. I really, really hope some of that information was useful. I hope it helps you feel more confident about the sort of work you're going to be doing, the work you're going to be putting in your portfolio, and how to approach this interview stage. Because it really isn't as scary as you may feel like it is. I promise. It will go all right. Just keep focused, take plenty of breaks, take this advice, and keep doing the work that you're doing because you're doing great and it will be a-okay. So thank you ever so much and good luck.